I was washing dishes in the dim light of the kitchen when I heard her voice behind me, sharp, cold, and full of hate. "You will never give him what he wants," she hissed. I froze, my hands trembling in the soapy water. It had been 3 years, and the words still cut like knives. When I married Ton, I thought my life would be full of happiness. I loved him, and he loved me, at least at first. We were happy, but after a year, the whispers started. I would walk through the market, and the women would give me pitying looks. They all knew I hadn't had a child yet, and in our village, that was everything. But it was Ton's mother who turned the whispers into something far worse. She would visit our house every day, finding reasons to criticize me. If I made a meal, it was never good enough. If I cleaned, it was never clean enough. But no matter what she said, it always came back to the one thing I couldn't do: give her a grandchild. I tried to ignore her words, tried to focus on my husband. Ton always told me not to mind his mother, that we just needed time. For a while, he defended me, but slowly, he started to change. One night, after another one of her rants, he told me that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. My heart broke a little that night, but I kept quiet. As the months turned into years, the insults grew crueler. She would call me cursed, useless, a disappointment. I felt so alone. My own family was far away, and the home I had built with Ton felt like a prison. One day, I overheard her telling him that he should find a real woman, someone who could make him a father. I waited for him to defend me, to tell her to stop, but he said nothing. He just sat there, staring at the floor. It got worse after that. Ton stopped looking at me the way he used to. He was cold, distant, and each night he stayed out later. I barely slept, waiting for him to come home. His mother grew bolder. She would come into our home unannounced, rearranging things, throwing out my cooking, and sometimes, she would just sit and stare at me, like I was some kind of stranger who had invaded her family. I cried alone, wishing for a way out, but I still loved him, and I stayed. Then, one day, a family friend, a respected elder, visited us. He had heard the whispers too and suggested that both Ton and I get tested. His eyes were kind, and he said it softly, so softly that it felt like he was offering me a lifeline. Ton's face hardened, but he agreed, more out of pride than anything else. We went to the hospital the next week. I remember sitting in that cold room, my hands twisting nervously in my lap while Ton sat next to me, staring at the floor. The results came in a few days later, and the truth was undeniable. It was Ton, not me. He was the reason we had no children. My whole world spun, and I felt both relief and sorrow all at once. His mother changed that very day. It was as if someone had flicked a switch inside her. She started visiting me with food, forcing out awkward, sugary words. She would call me her daughter, tell me how much she cared. I saw the desperation in her eyes, it made me sick. She begged me not to leave him, said we could adopt, that we could still be a family. But it was too late. I had stayed for years, hoping for something that was never real. I packed my things in silence, ignoring her pleas and the tears streaming down her face. Ton sat in the corner, his head in his hands, not saying a word. I told them I forgave them both because holding on to that anger was like holding on to poison. But forgiveness didn't mean staying. I walked out of that house with nothing but a small bag and my pride. Ton's mother called after me, her voice breaking with every word, but I didn't look back. I knew they would have to face the truth without me. Sometimes, love is not enough. And sometimes, forgiveness is the only way to find your own peace.